Hi again. Today I wanted to show you some really simple stitches in crochet to start with. I've done a similar video on my Facebook page, so for those of you that watched that and gave me the courage to do this on YouTube, thank you very much. I'm sorry for all the times I'm going to say and stutter over my words, because that is definitely going to be a thing. So yeah, to start with, I am using a nice 8-ply yarn. Excuse my dog in the background. He's picked today of all days to be annoying. And also I've picked a 5mm hook. And the reason for this is because it is a nice size to see those stitches, especially when starting out. Oh my god, Dexter, shush. Ugh, seriously. Anywho, I'm not going to start the video over again because, let's face it, it's going to be a thing in my videos. You're always going to hear my dog barking. Okay, so to start with, most projects are going to start with what we like to call a chain stitch. To do a chain stitch, first you want to, I guess, cast on, for lack of a better phrase. And how you want to do that, well, this is how I do it. You want to twist the yarn over each other, so loop it, a nice little loop there, and then you're going to grab your crochet hook, go through this top part and then around this bottom part and pull it through your loop, and then all you're going to do is just tighten that, and that is your slip knot. That is what we start with. So again, you're going to double over that yarn, crochet hook through, under that bottom bit of yarn, through the loop created, and then pull tight your slip knot. And then quite easily, to do our chain stitch, all we want to do then is wrap the yarn around and then sort of holding this bottom one here and pulling your crochet hook through. You're going to pull it through that loop and create a chain. So over again, through the loop, over, through. And you can see there I've done 3 chain stitches there. You can do as many as you wish if you're not going from a pattern and you want to do a square to start with, or if you wish to go straight to a scarf, you can. But this is how most projects like that start, with a lovely little chain stitch. And you can see on the top of that, it looks like a braid. That's how I see it anyway. The back looks a little bit messier, but you see it has a bit of a ridge. If you look at it from there, see you have a ridge. And some people like to use that ridge to crochet into for their foundation chain. I generally just use the top of my chain stitch here, but it's a personal preference and how you want it to look. There is such thing as a foundation chain, which looks I guess a bit neater for some projects that you're not going to go and then sort of stitch around it, but we're not doing that one today. We are just doing a simple chain stitch, and we're going to show you a simple double crochet or single crochet in American terms, and a double crochet or treble crochet as well. So both of those start with a chain. I'm just going to chain a few more on here just so that I've got a few to work with. As you get better at this, you're going to get better tension, which basically means just sort of how neat this is going to sit, and how tight. Usually when you start, it can look a little bit gapey in places. That just takes time, so don't worry too much about that. As long as you've got the basics happening, you'll get better at that with time, so don't worry too much. Alright, so I'm not going to worry too much about getting too much on here, but just to start with, I want to show you a double crochet in Australian terms or England terms, and which is also called a single stitch in our American terms. So to do that, we're going to skip, usually you skip 1 or 2 here, for a single or a double crochet, you want to just skip one chain and count them as like 1, 2, 3, kind of like that. And you want to skip the first one and go into that top. I like to go into the top loop. So if that's the top, this is the top here. So go into that. And then I'm going to wrap my yarn around the hook and then go through exactly like we would for a chain. But this time we got 2 loops on the hook. So I'm going to go around again and then through 2 loops. And that's the first stitch. So again, what we're going to do is go into that top loop, so the next chain across, go in, we're going to wrap the yarn around the crochet hook, you're going to go through the loop, you're going to have 2 left, so we're going to go around again and through the 2 on the hook. So that is a simple double crochet or single crochet in American. Let's just do a couple here so you can have a look at what it looks like. So as we go, this is what it's going to look like. You can see again we've got that braided look. That's your top, and this is the front of your stitches. The back is going to look a little bit different. So this is the right side, I guess you could call. So I'm going to just go to the end of this row, just because I just want to show you quickly how to do the next row and subsequent rows on that. So just don't mind me while I quickly get to the end. Or not so quickly because I'm doing it on camera and it's always a little bit fiddly. And I think eventually I'll probably sort out a better way to do this because my arm's already aching a little bit the way I've had to hold myself to do this video. So I'll have to work out something a bit more comfy. Ugh. But anyway, for now this will do. What can happen is sometimes your chain can get a little bit, like if you've got a particularly long chain, you want to really make sure that it doesn't twist, because what happens is, and you'll know straight away, because what will happen is the bottom, so see how mine's nice and straight, you can see that's a nice straight line across there. What's going to happen is yours is going to be all lumpy. I'll show you just quickly. So if I went underneath or I skipped one, for instance, it's gonna, you're gonna look straight away, see, looks quite messy. But luckily with crochet you can pull it straight out and untwist it and then go back. I love crochet because you can drop and pick up stitches so easy. I'm terrible at knitting, guys, I have to say. Don't ask me for a knitting video, it's not happening. Somebody else can give me one of those, please. All right, so we've gotten to the end of our row, and now to start a new row, what we want to do is we want to do 1 chain, boop, and then we're going to turn. You can turn first if you wish, and we're looking at the back now, so we're looking at that more of a ridged side, but we're still going into this top stitch, and by top what I mean is you want to go in underneath these 2, so the 2 braid looking areas, that's what we're going into, that's your stitch. Okay, so you're going to ignore the chain you just made and you're going to go straight into the first stitch, which is straight under those two loops there. You're going to wrap your yarn over, you're going to pull the crochet hook through, it's going to look like that. Again, you're going to have the 2 loops on, so you are just going to wrap around and go through those 2 loops, and you've just created your first stitch on your new row. Okay, you want to be careful that when you go through, what it looks like from this side, you're sort of just going in sort of between these 2, and when you look at it at the top, it's that top 2 like that. You want to make sure you don't pick up sort of your bottom areas down here, otherwise it's going to look really messy. So through, oops, let's get it so you can see it. So underneath those two, we're going to go through, wrap around, bring the hook through, wrap around again, and through the two on the crochet hook. And this is your second row, and see again you've got that nice braided look on the top there. So basically this is a very simple stitch when you're starting out. You can do a whole scarf with this if you wish. The other one I did want to show you quickly though is a treble stitch, or what you would call in American terms is a double. So basically your American terms are kind of like a step down, if that makes sense. So if your Australian term says a double stitch, American terms would be a single crochet. If Australia stitch says a treble, it would be American double, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to get your head around when you first start, but it's actually, I look at it like that. I'm like, it's like almost doing subtraction. I'm taking away. So I'm doing like the one below what the Australian says, if that makes sense. So to do a treble stitch, I'm going to go back to my chain. So I'm just going to undo that. I'm going to go back to my chain. And the reason why I'm doing both of these in the same video is just because I think they're, you use these two a lot, so I think it's good to know these two straight away. So I've gone back a little bit, it's a little bit tight next to my hook there, but there is one stitch in there. And basically, because we're now doing a treble stitch or a double stitch in American, we're actually going to skip 2 stitches to start, and we're going to go into our third chain on the hook. So what we're going to do is, instead of going straight through, this time we're going to wrap the hook over first, and we're going to go into that third chain. Wrap over again, through, and this time you're going to have 3 loops on your crochet hook. So you're going to wrap around again. You're going to go through 2 loops until you get to 2 loops on your crochet hook again. You're going to wrap around again and then go through the last 2. And because we went through the third chain on the hook, you've got a nice sort of edge here. So again, what we're going to do, the next stitch, we're going to wrap around again. We're going to go into the next stitch. So we're not skipping another 3, we're going straight into the next stitch this time. We're going to go in, wrap around once, come up, so we've got 3. I'm going to go around, I'm going to go through 2 loops, I'm going to wrap around again, and we're going to go through another 2 loops. And we have another treble crochet there. So again, wrap around, go through, top loop, wrap around, come through, so you've got 3, wrap around, come through 2, wrap around and go through 2. And there is your treble crochet or double crochet American. So again, I'm just going to get to the end of the row so I can show you how to do the next row. And once you know these two, very easy just to do a very basic pattern or scarf pattern. I think a scarf is what I first started with when I was crocheting. Actually, the first pattern I ever learnt was a granny square. I think I sort of skipped a few steps and I went straight to that. But a nice easy way of doing a scarf is just with a treble crochet and just picking whatever thickness you like, which is so your starting chain, so however long that is going to be, that is how thick your scarf is going to be. Or width, I should say, that's the width of your scarf. And then you always want to make sure, so with your, when you're crocheting, you sort of just want to make sure that with a scarf or anything like that, I mean, a lot of patterns are going to have a few different stitches and that in them, but this is a really nice basic one to start with, and a nice this is going to be a nice sort of flat scarf, I guess I could say. It's going to be nice and cozy for winter, which in Australia that's what we will be going into next, rather than, well, not next, we've still got our another season in between there, but yes. All right. And that is your first row of treble. Sorry if I sort of rambled on a little bit there. Sometimes I do when I'm trying to crochet and talk at the same time. I haven't quite gotten that skill yet, obviously. Yeah, so that's your first one. And then what you want to do to start your next row and subsequent rows, what you want to do now, instead of just chaining one, so if it was if this was your double stitch, you would just do a one. This time you're going to chain two, and we're going to turn again. That is what the back of your treble stitch is looking like. And again, you're going to go over the hook first. You're going to go back into this first chain here. Now it can be a little bit tricky. Basically, I just kind of try and ignore those first two chains. There is another, you can skip that one if you wish, but what you will find is that you'll start to decrease your row, unless when you get down to the end of this row, you crochet into that chain stitch, and you're basically not ignoring it, you're using it as a stitch. But the way I'm showing you now, we're basically ignoring it as a stitch. We're saying that's not a stitch, and we're going straight into this one here. And I know that's a little bit confusing. Trust me, you'll understand eventually. So for now though, don't worry about it. So we've chained our two, and we're going to go into that stitch there. So I've gone over once, we're going to go through those two loops exactly the same as we would for a double. Going to come back up, we've got 3 loops on the hook, so we're going to go over again, go through 2, and then go through 2, exactly the same as we did for the bottom. So again, over, through, around, back up, over, through 2, and then through 2. Okay, so when you get to that second end of that second row, I've got a bit of a knot in my yarn. I just picked up any yarn to show you. It's just one I had sitting there, and it's a little bit tangled. Feel free to stop and rewind if I'm going too fast. I'm sorry, I do apologize. This is very new to me, doing a video. But hopefully it's pretty easy to understand. I really look forward to people commenting and letting me know how you found it. Please, only constructive criticism. I'm not going to respond if you just sit there and go, well, that was crap. But if you've got serious questions, I'm happy to answer those. So I'm just going to get to the end of this row. I actually use YouTube myself sometimes when there's a stitch that I don't understand, and I find it really good. The only thing is sometimes I find it a little bit boring. That's my biggest thing, and I hate sometimes they take too, like, just describing the stitch takes too long. So hopefully I haven't done that as well. And I'm not going to name any names because honestly I couldn't even tell you what the name was anyway, so it doesn't even matter. But yeah, I don't want to be just like going so slow that you get too bored. That's basically what I want to say there. Alright, so I've just gotten to the end here. So you can see there, that's the last stitch there on top because it looks like that braided look. We're going to go through that, round, up, around, come through 2, and then go through 2. And then you can see that is our sort of starting chain, or the chains that we missed at the start. and now that's the end of our row 2. So we've sort of not worried about going, we haven't, if you were going to go into that chain, you'd then have to like try and fiddle around with it, but we've just sort of ignored it. It will look, when you've got a bit of a length, it will look a little bit bumpy on the edges, but it should be fairly straight. So to do your next row, exactly what you did before, chain 2, turn, and start your new row, going into that first stitch, ignoring those 2, and do your first treble. Oh, I keep going back to American terms because that's generally what I crochet in. Most of my patterns that I find with that American terms. So it can be a little bit tricky, but in my mind I know what I'm doing. My own mind, I should say. So there you go, guys. Hopefully that wasn't too tricky. Let me know how you went. Any feedback is appreciated, but that is basically how you start off. So we've done a double and a treble crochet for you guys, and hopefully it has been fairly easy to follow, but please let me know if it's not, or if I'm going too fast, too slow, whatever. Would love your feedback. And yeah, my next video I might show you how to do a color change using these 2 stitches, so that if you do want to keep going with your project, if you started doing a scarf, you know how to change colors if you wish. So that'll be my next video, guys. I hope you enjoy. I hope you're all having an awesome day, and happy crocheting.